All right, let's move on to my next topic. There you go, California. And certainly made the point, obviously this is secondary to human activity, global burning, fires there. Let's play this part of this video so you can hear PBS NewsHour tell you the same thing.
So fires need a number of ingredients. So you need to have fuel that's going to burn. You need to have what's called fire weather. That's the dry air and the strong winds that are most conducive to allowing wildfires to spread. And of course, you need an ignition source.
All right, so let me just stop it so you know who's talking. This is a NASA climatologist from the Goddard Center, obviously an expert. And he's, saying what I've been saying, what others have been saying. So you need two things. You need fuel and you need the actual fire itself to start it. And he's going to go on and talk about it some more.
The climate aspect of this is very much in the both in the fuel load and in the fire weather aspects. So in Southern California, we used to think of the late fall as being fire season. Well, now fire season stretches out all year because the temperatures and the evaporative draw, the drying out of the land surface has been increasing as temperatures have increased. And so the other part of that is the fuel load. One of the things that we've been seeing in California is this kind of whiplash between extreme wet events like multiple atmospheric rivers at the beginning of last year, and then extreme dry events. So it hasn't really rained in the Los Angeles area for months now, and that has led to both a spurt of growth when there was water, and then all of that growth has dried out, providing unfortunately a perfect storm for fires this season. And now in the wintertime, when you get these strong Santa Ana winds coming off the cold mountains into the warm basin, those have provided that extra component of fire weather, and we're seeing the results.
All right, so just real quick, these are the same exact points I made, Shade made yesterday as well. You have more growth because of the extreme rainy seasons that we've had on occasion, and then extreme aridity. So the human activity burning fossil fuels causing more swings, more extreme weather, more precipitation, more aridity, and that is creating more fuel, and then ultimately more conditions where extreme heat and wind will create terrible problems, as we're seeing right now. So that's what we are doing, right? That's what we've done. That's what humans have done. I'm going to play a little more. This is really important stuff. And it's relevant, very relevant in my view, to what Governor Newsom, the terrible decision that he recently made, and we'll get to that recently, meaning yesterday. But let's just hear a little more from this expert.
If our baseline is changing and these large-scale destructive events are becoming more common, what more can we do to mitigate it?
Well, I mean, we can mitigate things on the long term by reducing the amount of greenhouse gases that we're putting into the atmosphere. Until we do that, temperatures are going to keep rising, and we're going to keep having these announcements about record warm years. And the impacts of that global mean temperature change on intense rainfall, on wildfires, on sea level rise, on heat waves are going to continue to get worse. There are local adaptations that we can do to prevent the worst things. We can build better in the same way that we build better for earthquakes. We can build better for fire-prone environments. We can try and manage things, but a lot of this is unfortunately kind of beyond our control.
All right, so you heard what he said. I mean, it's so clear, right? Two things that have to be done. The big thing is we stop burning fossil fuels. We just stop. We move to renewables. We move to sustainable energy, right? That's the big thing that Dr. Schmidt there from NASA is saying. That's the one thing we have to do. But the other thing we can do is build better, build smarter. Won't stop the fires. It won't reduce the total number of fires, but at least will reduce the devastation, right? So two things. The big thing, burn something other than coal, natural gas, oil. Just don't burn them. The other thing, build smarter, build better. And I mean, we can all think of ways you build better, right? You know, you have smaller houses. You don't have all the sprawl. You have apartments that are kind of set aside. Maybe even you have a moat. You build them right around water. You don't have these far-flung neighborhoods where you need lots and lots of hydrants and you need lots and lots of dispersed water pressure in various different places. Big problem. Shade pointed this out yesterday. By the way, put some corrections in from yesterday's program. The aerial water fighters, the helicopters, and they have these super scoopers. It's pretty cool. Yeah, you were talking about, Shade, the salt water. So the super scoopers coming down like a pelican, I guess, and then scooping up the water. And since the fires were right close to the ocean, they can fly a couple miles inland, just dump that water right on the fire and then go back out to sea and scoop it up like a pelican, and it's bill. So that couldn't be done, not because it wasn't the fault of the mayor. It was because of or you know, the city in general. There wasn't some kind of infrastructure or massive failure of leadership. It was just the winds were too strong. So to the extent I said otherwise, and I did, I was wrong, correcting that. That said, again, you know, if you have people living close together in apartment complexes, in highly dense complexes or building, you know, developments, as opposed to the Beverly Hills model, the Pacific Palisades, where you have these multimillionaires who everyone wants their own home with its own swimming pool, with its own yard. That's the worst possible scenario for fighting the fire, because you need to have water everywhere, all over the place. Whereas if you have people living in apartments, an apartment block, an apartment building, or just even in townhouses, then you can have the water in a much smaller area and you can have more pressure in a few places rather than needing the pressure everywhere. And that was a big factor, right? There just wasn't enough pressure to keep the water flowing out of the hoses in the various spots. So two things, right? So what would you think should be done given that fact? Well, I would think if you were like a really far-sighted, thoughtful, intelligent government leader, you would say, we got to all get together and figure out how to, when we rebuild, we're going to rebuild in ways that we cut back significantly. We reduce the use of fossil fuels, and we also have smarter dwelling places. If not, you know, more public housing for sure, because people need it. People need to live, but also just more apartment complexes, more townhouses. So is that what Gavin Newsom proposes? Is that what he's calling for? Is he saying we need a special legislative session? Hey, we're the leader. We're California. Good ideas come from us. We're avant-garde. We're progressive. Let's get that Democratic legislature together, and we'll brainstorm. We're going to keep everyone together in Sacramento, because this is such a huge challenge to our state. It's so expensive, it's so costly, it's so damaging. These fires, we've got to prevent it from happening in the future. We've got to build back smarter. Is that what he said? No. Let's just suspend the environmental rules. Let's just make it more likely that this will happen again. The reason you have those rules in the first place, presumably, is to reduce the likelihood of an environmental catastrophe. And if they don't work to do that, then come up with better rules. The last thing you want is just a Wild West. Oh, go ahead, rebuild however you want. You want to use wood? Build with wood. So what if it's fireproof, fire prone? It's cheaper. It looks nice. This is insane. It's the craziest decision ever. We're just going to suspend the rules. And what, I mean, I can't even, it just, when I saw that, it boggled my mind. I haven't heard anyone even really talking about this. And what happened? Look at that. Just, it's a moonscape. It's a lunarscape. It's all dead. It's sterile because of that fire. And now we'll have more. You say, well, look, you got a pool, so if you have a pool, you can use the pool, right? We want private homes with pools because they can stop fires. It doesn't stop nothing. So the people in those homes, they've got a lot of insurance. They're insured up the yin-yang. Some of it's probably provided by, subsidized by taxpayers. Who's going to go to town? Hey, put that addition on. So don't worry about you don't have to worry about using solar energy or green or wind or whatever. The 3B agency directs the state agencies to coordinate with local governments not to build back better, to build back smarter, not to make sure that everyone is housed. No, let's just allow people to do whatever they want when they rebuild. We're going to waive all permitting requirements, waiver of permitting requirements under the California Environmental Quality Act. And I don't want to say stupid. I mean, I gotta believe it's just pure corruption. This is what probably the developers, the builders want. Obviously, it's what they want, right? The last thing they want is to have a lot of red tape. Oh, is this addition really necessary? Are you going to be cutting down any trees? Because the trees can be a fire break. Not the brush, not the scrub, but you have those old oaks, they might, but the fires are so hot now, it's less likely to prevent it. But still, better to have the tree than not, usually. We don't want to have to worry about whether we cut down any trees. Also, just one more little throw-in by Governor Newsom. All permitting requirements are suspended as well for the California State Coastal Act, which is designed to prevent runoff into the ocean, right? Pollution, toxic waste. It's crazy. Why? Because of a fire, there's no longer a crisis of polluted oceans? Is that the reason? Is that the theory? That we don't have to worry about coastal erosion now because of a fire? I understand the impetus. The impetus is people need to be housed. We need to build back. I get it. But there are ways you can address that need without taking off the protections for the environment and ultimately for all of the people in the state. Again, build structures, build complexes where lots of people can live. And if it's going to be temporary, it's going to be temporary for a while. You're going to be unhoused for a while, one way or the other. Moving forward, we're all in the same boat. Let's make sure we build a tight, safe, secure boat for all citizens that's least likely to be capsized the next time there's a extreme weather event. But it's the decision by Newsom obviously going in the utterly the wrong direction. And just to be tie a bow around all of this. So there are times, again, we're going to see play both sides of it. Maybe that makes some sense because the rules are often suspended, right, in certain cases, in emergencies like this. It isn't, we can't deny it's an emergency. And for large projects like sports stadiums, wow, sports stadiums, I guess, shouldn't have to comply with environmental rules. Crazy. But the Times makes it clear, to its credit, that this is different. This is a different kettle of fish, what Newsom's doing. It's unusually extensive. And in the past, even when we've said, okay, there was a big earthquake or there was a flood or what have you, and we've needed to rebuild, the owners of the property have had to at least show they tried to comply with the law. But now it's gone. Environmental protection for the people, I would say it's for the state, right? It's for the land, it's for the vegetation, the botany, the animals, but it's for humans too, right? I mean, we all presumably want a sort of a nice environment to live in. I want to get to the meat of this because what we heard from the Goddard NASA climatologist is that the only way we're going to reduce in the end these devastating environmental events like fires, only way we reduce their deadliness, their size, their frequency is if we reduce our consumption of fossil fuels. And that was a huge impetus. That's a huge part of the California Environmental Quality Act. One of the major reasons for it is to move California away from fossil fuels, which is exactly what California must do if it doesn't want more fires that are so devastating. There's always going to be fires. It's not like there are not going to be fires. There'll be fires. But to have a shorter fire season, fires that can be fought, fires that are less deadly and destructive, right? That's one of the major reasons we should be cutting back on fossil fuel use. And it's a major reason for the California Environmental Quality Act. So this is from Jessica Wentz back in 2019. California adopts CQA guidelines aimed at improving considerations of greenhouse gas emissions and climate change impacts. The law that Newsom just suspended is the law that presumably could ultimately be used to prevent future disasters. It's crazy. It's insane. He did the exact wrong thing. That's your Democrat. That's the guy that people said, oh, if only he had been our nominee instead of Harris. And maybe he would have been a little better. I don't know. I don't know. But I will tell you this, that friends of mine in California, maybe we'll hear from Arlen on this, they don't like him. The ones that I trust, that I rely on, they don't trust him. They don't think he's, and that's my sense, is he's not trustworthy. He's phony. He's a faux aggressive. From the CEQA commentary, the latest guidelines require consideration of any wasteful, inefficient, or unnecessary consumption of energy, and states that agencies must mitigate any wasteful energy use if it will give rise to significant impacts. So that requirement, a requirement that is absolutely the right requirement, is out. And it's out if you're rebuilding. Remember disaster capitalism. No good disaster goes, you don't take it. You got to take advantage of these opportunities. That's disaster capitalism for you. That's Naomi Klein, the shock doctrine. And the CEQA is very, very smart, the way it's written. And this is the kind of thing that I would support. It's not the perfect answer, but it's very, very close. So what the CEQA says, if you're going to approve a subdivision, if you're going to approve a building project, you got to focus ultimately on the energy demand caused by it. Will there be increases? Is this very energy efficient? Does it use all the latest technology, solar energy, wind energy, geothermal? Is it designed so that it will absorb very little heat from the sun in the summer and will also be relatively warm in the winter? Those are the kind of factors that the California Environmental Department of the Environment is supposed to focus on to determine whether to approve projects. And that's exactly what should be done when LA is being rebuilt. But it won't be, because Newsom just said, nah, do whatever the hell you want. Free for all. All right, 240-242-5646. Just a little bit longer for today's program. I'm a little over the hour, but I want to just finish this. Complete mistake. Now, I said this isn't perfect. Well, what would be perfect? Remember, you want to focus on the energy demand caused by the project, right? You want to reduce it. So what's the best way to do that? What's the most efficient way to reduce energy demand? Raise the price of energy. Tax it. You start charging people to, burn coal, to generate electricity for a project. They're going to burn less coal. They're going to use less electricity. You start charging them more and more for every gallon of gasoline they burn, they're going to burn less gasoline. That is the answer. But this is close. We're saying to the agency in charge, you got to consider these factors. But the problem is agencies are subject to a lot of political pressure. There can be political compromises. There can be corruption, right? If you're the tasked with the ultimate vote on whether to approve a project, the project's the contractor may bribe you, quite simply. Give you money. Approve the project. Here's a $500,000. Approve the project. That happens over and over and over again. Can't really do that if you got to just pay for every time you want to, fill up your car, you got to pay $10 a gallon, $15 a gallon. Who do you bribe to give you cheaper gas? You can't do that. So that's the best solution. But regardless, Newsom did the wrong thing. He should be concentrating right now on alleviating the people who are in most need, whose situation is most pressing, urgent. Make sure everyone has enough to eat, everyone's a place to sleep, everyone is safe, everyone is secure, and then let's be really, really, really smart, because California hasn't been really smart in the past in how we rebuilt. And my final point, and then I'm going to call it a program. I was really intrigued by this from a lawyer, a law firm, Annette Phelps, in a commentary they had based on a California Court of Appeals decision, which ruled that a project could not move forward based on the CEQA, because the court said the project proponents didn't demonstrate that they had considered solar energy for that project, and that it wasn't the ideal solution for the problem. So what the CEQA, which Gavin Newsom suspended completely, wiped it off the books for rebuilding in the wake of this fire. And there's a tremendous amount, billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of damage that will have to be rebuilt. So an enormous amount of construction to come. And the builders won't have to say, well, we looked at solar, we looked at wind, but we ultimately went with coal-fired electricity generation. Why? Why'd you do that? They won't have to answer that question. So that's your Democratic governor. That's your progressive. That's the guy who maybe could have beaten Trump. I don't know. But is there any better reason to look at alternatives? Say now is the time, just like now is the time in Los Angeles to look at smart rebuilding, efficient rebuilding, clean, green rebuilding. Is there any reason now not to look at alternatives, aggressive alternatives to the Democratic Party? Thanks for being part of Halitics. Thanks for comments. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, click like. I really want you to subscribe if you haven't yet done so. I'll be back tomorrow.